When it comes to spiritual dialogue and engaging someone who believes differently than we do, there seems to always be a problem that emerges. And that problem is, when do we trust the honesty of the other person? For example, if I'm talking with someone who believes something differently than I do, and I really believe that that difference is pretty significant, and they seem to suggest it's not, then I can become very suspicious of them and very tempted to believe that they're being dishonest and lying. Rather than having a healthy conversation where we assume the best, we're now kind of finding ourselves being negative and critical and suspicious that this person is not being honest with us, and we want to debate them and argue with them, and we begin to question their very integrity. Think about it. When we begin a conversation with somebody, we want to build a bridge to them. Our goal is to be positive, to have a healthy dialogue, and to create a friendship there. But instead, when we're suspicious and we doubt and we have questions about the integrity of the person, we end up building walls between us and not bridges. Now, I'm not saying that we're not going to have honest disagreements. I'm not saying that we're not going to have conflict and where we're going to struggle in a conversation with someone who believes differently about the very nature and definition of truth. That will always happen, and we're allowed to have those kinds of honest disagreements with one another, but when it becomes nasty or prejudiced, that's not good. Ronald Reagan used to say, "Trust but verify." This is a very important principle when it comes to dialogue, because when we have agreement with somebody, but we're not totally sure they mean the same thing we mean, that's where we can go further in the conversation, ask healthy questions, and verify that what they're saying is the same thing we're saying. For instance, when it comes to the Mormon evangelical conversation today, one of the key theological tensions is the doctrine of grace, the word grace. What do Latter-day Saints mean when they use the word grace, and what do evangelicals mean? We both seem to affirm grace, we both seem to use that same word, but many times evangelicals are suspicious that a Latter-day Saint is not meaning that word in the same way that we are. And that's a tension that we have to get through. So how do we solve that? We just ask a further question. So when you use the word grace, what do you mean by that? Can you explain that more? Can you give me some examples? Can you define the word grace? And we can go back and forth that way to take the conversation deeper, where we can build more trust and more confidence that we are saying the same thing. Think about it. When somebody in a conversation with you seems to doubt you and are suspicious that you're telling the truth, what kind of a reaction does that create? For me, I get defensive. I want to say, hey, why are you questioning me? I'm being honest with you. I'm telling you what I really believe. I'm the world's greatest authority on what Greg Johnson happens to believe, and you're questioning that. But on the other hand, when they ask a clarifying question, when they say, Greg, I'm not sure I totally understand what you mean. Can you explain that word a little bit better? Can you help me understand what you mean when you say grace? That actually is an invitation for the conversation to continue, for the bridge to be built, for the common ground to be gained, for the trust and the honesty to grow and be respected. Vice versa. When I ask somebody a question to say, hey, help me understand what you mean by this, I'm complimenting them. I'm giving them an opportunity to help me better understand. And that grows the conversation. That extends the conversation. That builds the friendship and the relationship. And for me personally, that's opened up so many amazing doors. The friendships I have with BYU scholars, or institute professors, or students, or general authorities, or Mormons in my neighborhood, because I've taken the time to say, hey, I want to better understand what you're saying, and I want to build trust in our relationship that you're being honest with me, wonderful things have happened, and they will for you as well.